Yeah. No, I've, I'm sure that some of you have seen. I've been finding unusual ways to occupy myself, making stop motion animation and such. I decided the other day when Talisha, that's when I saw you last, actually, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I just thought of it, just there and then. I'm going to make a stop motion animation. That seems to be a really, really time-consuming thing to do, and I have some time, so I should do that. So I made a 5-second video, and it took me all day.
Have you done anything more?
So when I put that one on the internet, a friend of mine from England who is a musician, whose music I've been using on this, and I use it for the podcast as well. He said that he really enjoyed it, and I used a piece of his music for it as well because he'd previously allowed me to do that. And then he said he was going to make some more music, so I've given him some ideas and some visual cues for things that I've enjoyed in the last little while. I've things like Neon Demon. I would send him stills from that, or like Rothko painting, just images that kind of have some significance or inspiration or cause you to think. So I sent him all of that, and then he's going to make a piece of music kind of based on that, and then send it back to me, and then I'll make a video to go with that. So I think that's a good way of doing like a kind of cross-continental collaboration in some way.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, it might be. It could be awful. I've never, given that I only made a 5-second video, we'll see how a 10-second video goes, and then if I've still got the patience to,
Just a week later.
It feels like stop motion is just always so, like there's something, it's not quite like Uncanny Valley, but there's just something so exciting about it every time.
Yes.
It doesn't even really matter what it is. Like, obviously there are varying degrees of quality with stop motion, but it just feels like you can literally make anything move through a series of pictures, and it's very exciting. It's
a very strange experience. It gives you a kind of when you actually try it, it gives you a great appreciation for things like the work of like Jan Švankmajer or brothers Quay, who do these films that aren't just stop motion. They're very particular. They're very abstract. And we were talking about David Lynch, The Art Life last time as well. And it's difficult to make something that's abstract. It's difficult to just sort of put a blob on a canvas and then be like, well, that is that's how I feel. It's it's difficult to convey that in a way that really means something. So when you actually look at these artists, the stuff that they do is so utterly painstaking. I think even then, when it is that painstaking and that kind of what's the word, that fastidious, the attention to detail, you still don't really know when you put it all together and you take these images and you piece them together, like what it's going to feel like to see them move. And that was the thing that I was having trouble grasping. I figured out, of course, you move something a very, just a hair, take a picture, just a bit more. And then when you see it move, it becomes this entirely new thing. And it's really exciting, actually. Like it's worth all of the time it takes to do it, I'd say. So ages ago, Lucy, you asked me, could I recommend a film noir? And I gave you a bunch of stupid answers. And I'm going to give you a real one now that I don't know if you may have seen. So
I'm going to get out a pencil. That's how serious I am.
You should absolutely write this down because I thought of you and I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it. Yeah. The film is called Under the Silver Lake. And it is...
What's wrong, Will?
I know that this is not the kind of film that Will would like. I can tell you that. And I've got a list of reasons why right here. What is it about...
Your Vice instead.
Huh?
Wait. Oh.
That's you're so dismissive. It's unbelievable. Sorry, Heather. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say that I've taken a whole class on film noir, Lucy. So if you want recommendations...
To be honest, I have two, so it's kind of more like we gotta get a little bit more obscure, but also if you talk to me about neo-noir, I'll be furious.
That's what you want is neo-noir. You don't
want...
No,
I don't want to hear about neo-noir.
Then,
if you mention neo-noir, I'll say, did I ask you for neo-noir?
I should probably say then...
Is that what Under the Silver Lake is? Yeah.
I'm going to take that off the table then.
This is time for me to plug my personal favorite noir, which I never get to do, which is Nightmare Alley, which I think is like 1945 with Tyrone Powers. And it's a great movie for the age of demagogues, which is what we're doing right now.
Okay.
Highly, highly recommend.
Is that available on a particular service that someone can find?
I have no idea.
No
I
idea.
saw it in 35mm like 5 years ago, and it has been my pet noir since then.
Nightmare Alley.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
You know, Just Watch will tell you somewhere or not.
I don't know what Just Watch is, but
It's
Oh, we talked about it last
It
time.
Yeah.
tells you, if you search for films, it'll tell you where you can either stream it or buy it.
nice. In Canada as well, not just like because I find
Yeah,
lots of stuff
if you
streaming in the
search-
US, and then I'm like
No,
disappointed 'cause
search
it's
Just
not here.
Watch
Yeah.
Canada and it'll bring up.
So, can I ask you, Lucy, what is it about neo-noir in particular that just can't do it for you?
First of all, because just like I'm sick of hearing about it, and the fact that if you ever talk about film noir, people will be like, "Oh yeah, have you heard about Chinatown?" Like, yeah, I'm not talking about that. I didn't bring it. It's different. And also just because like it's a different thing. Like I'm asking for, like, I like classic cinema basically. That's kind of the side of cinema that I watch.
Right.
And the whole thing is there's a different thing between like the thing and then the thing subverting the thing. I don't want the thing subverting. Like I'm happy with noir. I enjoy that. I don't really, there's nothing against neo-noir, but it's not what I'm looking for. I like classic noir.
Yeah, and the thing with classic noir is it's like really, I don't know, it's just like an interesting historical artifact. Like it's really representing a mood
Mhm.
at the time, like a mindset, and like a, kind of emerging cynicism or something in the culture that is, I don't know, it's just like a very interesting period to look back at in cinema.
There's a lot of things about when you look at like films made at another time, they were doing a specific thing, and like culturally and even just the way that movies were made was different in ways that they weren't consciously trying to make them different. They weren't consciously trying to like do this whole thing. That's just the way the world was and the society that they're part of, and that comes across very differently than like, oh, we're going to like put on old-timey hats and do noir. And it's just kind of, I like to watch what they were actually doing. And also there's some actors that, like, I like to see what they're up to.
So did you take it with Bill Beard?
No, with Del Rio?
Oh yeah, great. That's good.
I don't know. I think so. Yes.
Elena?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. Well, we watched 24 movies in the class. Well, like, it was 2 a week when I took it. So I might still have something to... Have you seen The Prowler?
No.
Okay, that's one I would recommend.
Sounds good.
It's kind of like, it's got some, like, themes of, like, corrupt police. Like, Van Heflin is the, like... this like corrupt cop who is manipulating this woman that he wants to have an affair with, and then what's interesting is there's like he's kind of the femme fatale, like the roles are reversed in it. So yeah.
Another thing I love about noir is just seeing Edward G. Robinson in like every third movie, and you're just like, yeah, honestly, he's always great. He kills it every time. Why are we casting other actors?
It's true, he's really good.
I think it was the 100th birthday of Toshiro Mifune recently. So noir-wise, definitely if you haven't seen The Bad Sleep Well, that's another one that should go on there. It's kind of like a corporate noir that Kurosawa directed. It's very good.
I like the idea of corporate noir. I don't know what that means, but I will when I see it.
No, that's interesting. I wasn't asking because I was trying to aggravate you. I was just interested in what it was about, neo-noir in particular that you didn't like, because it's weird to think. What is strange is that film noir does exist kind of like isolated in a particular time, and there is like a cut-off. But you're talking about where there would be a cut-off point where after that point, it's a pastiche of itself in some way.
And to be honest, there's also there's kind of a vibe of the kind of people that are going to tell you about neo-noir. There's like bros who are just always waiting for you to bring up films they can like tell you to watch, and like I've had enough of that I'm like all set. I don't need any more, even if it's from people who are not like those people.
Right.
You're just looking out so that you don't get into the conversation that's, well, actually, here's why Roman Polanski should not be charged by anybody.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I won't get on that.
Is it impossible to make a film noir now?
Yes.
But no, I'm not certain that it is.
Yeah.
I don't think it is. I think it's possible to keep on making like.
I think they have to be neo-noir. Like, there's in film like history, there are styles and there are periods, there are movements, right? Like, there's kind of different ways that you can categorize like what you're talking about. And I think that film noir, in its like truest definition, is a specific time. It's a style of movies that took place within. It's like a movement, right? So anything beyond that is like, it's harkening back to that. Like, it's a referential style when you kind of make it now, I think.
And the way that you go about making something like that, like, you're trying so hard to like think about noir movies that you've seen and like do a thing that you've seen them do. You're not authentically doing it. And so like some of the things that would have just been in there as a like, oh, this is a new idea, we're going to explore this, you're going to be doing as kind of trying to, we've had all these other things subsequently, but let's try to forget about that and pretend we don't know about that, and and you can't do it artificially like that. And
also the people, like the films that were coming out during that period, they weren't trying to be like, they didn't even identify themselves as film noir. It was the French, the Quay de cinema people who like recognized all of these trends that were happening in American cinema and put this name on it. So I think, to like, maybe for you as well, but to me what's interesting is that like was this thing that was happening in Hollywood. It was like there was something about like there's just this interesting combination of things where they wanted to deal with anti-heroes, they wanted to deal with people who had a lot of flaws, and then they also had the code, which was like preventing them from like getting away with like because they wanted to portray people doing bad things, but also the code forced the filmmakers to punish everyone. Then these movies have like a really dark endings because of like a structural thing that was placed on them. Like, they couldn't just get away with it, and so it was just like a hugely new thing, I think, in Hollywood cinema.
I think,
and also if you look at noir, sorry, just one.
But
if you look at noir, there's a lot of, it's like a category that kind of is placed in retrospect. So there's a lot of films with a lot of different things going on that actually are characterized as film noir, that you're like, oh, I wouldn't have, if I was going to make a noir, that's not what I would have happening in it, because that's so different than the others. But because it was part of the time and because it was part of the kind of zeitgeist, it has some of these key elements that are playing out in this movie, but maybe thematically quite differently than in the other movies that are also noir.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I think that at the same time, though, they're in amongst the sort of like the period where film noir, I suppose, was particularly prevalent. There are going to be examples that are still, even at that time, the same way that any trend begins to sort of recycle itself in a very small period of time, where those aren't any more of a sort of example of something which is separate from something that can be made now, well, not now necessarily, but certainly within the last 50 years, that would have elements that you could link to those kind of like thematic styles of film noir. I think there are elements of film noir in David Lynch. You know, I think that Blue Velvet contains parts of that. I think Mulholland Drive, I wouldn't categorize them as neo-noir at all. You know, there's parts of it in Coen Brothers films, like Blood Simple and Barton Fink.
The Man Who Wasn't There.
Man Who Wasn't There, but I wouldn't remove those. Like, I don't know. It's calling them film noir, neo-noir is almost dismissive in a way, because there's clearly some difference between, you know, those two categories of films, isn't there? I don't know. It's interesting.
I like that this whole conversation has happened with this picture of Lucy in the background. It's like she's Orson Welles in The Third Man or something.
What I like also is that we're talking about, you know, like a pastiche of style, and the picture beside it is the picture that she took of that picture.
This is my art. This is actually how I express myself. Here's Owen's.
Yes, that's mine.
Here's the slight.
It's a picture of you doing the same thing on a TV with my picture that I originally took in the background.
It was a lot of work to do, and it was fantastic.
You couldn't make it up. It
was a great use of my time.
It was a fantastic use of your time. Everyone appreciates it.
That was before we had we could leave our homes when we did that, but we chose not to.
I know.